Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to New Zealand once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now, we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before, but the last reviews I did involving these guys appeared on the channel back in 2017, and it's absolutely crazy to think that it's been about 7 years, probably more, since I had a beer from these guys. These guys are one of the really pioneering breweries in their country. They were one of the first breweries I encountered from that country as well, and I used to really love their stuff. But from my kind of beer circles, they just sort of disappeared actually, and I never really came across anything from them for quite a wee while. But that did of course change when I came here to Hong Kong, and yeah, I'm quite happy about that. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy, one that is enjoying a little bit of a renewed popularity in recent times, I would say as well, and it's also one of this brewery's kind of core range beers these days, I would say, and it was created as part of a project that we'll talk about a little bit later on in the video too. But I've heard this one is very good, and it's one that I've wanted to try for quite some time, so needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head down to New Zealand. Like I said, we're going to stick to the North Island for this one and go to the city of Wellington in the southern part of the North Island, and we're going to have a look then at another beer from the wonderful Garage Project Brewery. So this particular beer is called Pernicious Wheat. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a West Coast double imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this beer has been around for quite a few years, but it was one that I never came across actually until I came here to Hong Kong, despite it being one of this brewery's better known beers. But I've heard very good things about it, and I'm glad that I finally managed to come across a can, and from what I gather this one is pretty damn fresh actually, so really looking forward to this one, as I said, and really cool to return to Garage Project Brewing after such a long time. I do hope I can get down to New Zealand again at some point soon and visit their tap room and do a wee bit of filming and things. That would be really fun. But yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Garage Project Brewery before, and we will add some more to that list at some point in the near future. I've got no intention of leaving it another 7 years before we try one of their beers. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the New Zealand playlist, along with a number of other things. That's been added to fairly regularly since I came here to Hong Kong, because we get a good selection of Kiwi beer, which I'm very happy about. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on at the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Garage Project Brewery once again then. So, Garage Project Brewery was founded back in 2011 in Wellington down in New Zealand, and the three main men behind starting the company were the brothers Peter and Ian Gillespie, along with Josh Russell. And all three of these guys had worked in the brewing industry before they started Garage Project. So Peter Gillespie is the original brewer, and he was previously an academic before going on to work at breweries in the UK and Australia, and then of course went on to Garage Project. His brother Ian had previously run and set up various cafes, and the brewery was originally squatting in his garage. But Josh Russell, on the other hand, was a well-known beer enthusiast in Wellington, and he is seen kind of as the ideas man of the company, and he's just a very kind of passionate, enthusiastic individual, from what a lot of people have said. At least that was the impression that I got from the articles I read in this brewery. But the brewery originally started out with a small 50-litre kit, but these days they're based in an old petrol station on Arrow Street in Wellington, and they moved in there back in 2011. But in the early days they had a project called 2424, which was where they produced 24 new beers over the course of 24 weeks, and this is one of the things that really went a long long way to establishing Garage Project as one of the kind of premier New Zealand craft breweries, and many of those beers are still in production, including this one. But the brewery grew very, very fast in their first few years, and they've got an on-site tap room and cellar door at the brewery, as well as a mixed fermentation and barrel store location in central Wellington too. This is called the Wild Workshop, and they opened a second Wild Workshop location in the Te Aro area of Auckland in 2020. But since 2017, they've been producing natural wines under the brand GP Crushed, which are made in the Wellington location. And that year as well, they also created a partnership with Brewing Studio in Hawke's Bay, which is a contract brewing facility used by many New Zealand breweries. But basically having this partnership allowed them to build up their exports with their larger volume production beers, and it let them use their own space for more experimentation and recipe development, which was always the kind of roots that Garage Project Brewery wanted to stick to. But over the years, these guys have garnered countless awards for their beers. They're one of the most decorated craft breweries in the world, I think, actually. And as of September 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 800 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. So yeah, one of the most prolific breweries, if not the most prolific brewery that you'll find in New Zealand. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Garage Project Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the beer itself. So the artwork on this one, as you can see, I think is really quite nice. So I think the name Pernicious Weed, I think it's supposed to be a reference to the fact that you know, hops are they are basically weeds, if you like. That's how they kind of started out. They're very kind of you know, they're very hardy plants actually, and very kind of difficult to get rid of if they were pests, if they were considered pests, if you like. But obviously we found a use for them through evolution and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, you can see plain silver top on the can there. But yeah, the artwork of this one is great. You can see all the kind of hop fields and things, and then the cars just parked looking at the hop fields and stuff like that. And it looks like is that a spaceship or something? The green light or whatever? I don't know. But yeah, the artwork on this one, I have to say, is pretty damn cool actually. So kudos once again to Garage Project Brewery for this. But they were always very good for their artwork. I remember I had a beer from them called Death from Above, which was based on some kind of Vietnamese food dish, and it had all the Huey hogs and things like that on it. I think that label caused a bit of controversy from what I remember too. But yeah, this one, as we said earlier, it comes in at 8% ABV. West Coast double IPA, and it says on the back here, Garage Project presents Pernicious Weed, Humulus lupulus, the original wicked and pernicious weed, Nelson Sauvin and Racal hops go head to head in this strong golden brew for an intense citrus grapefruit character. Bitter, yes, intensely hoppy, absolutely too much, never. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, the two hops in this one are, of course, New Zealand hops. Nelson Sauvin is the classic New Zealand hop, 16% alpha acid normally, and it gives you this big white green grapey gooseberry sort of flavour. Racal is about 10 or 11% alpha acid, and I remember it being really quite famous for its apricot-y type flavours. But Racal is one of my favourite New Zealand hops, of course, and I do love my New Zealand hops generally speaking as well. But yeah, two classic New Zealand hops in this one. As I said, this is Pernicious Weed, 8% West Coast Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Let's get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. I'm really curious about this one. So, there we go. Ooh. This is going to be good. It's always cool to finally get around to doing beers that you've wanted to taste for quite a wee while. Messing it up, just do that so my OCD is happy. But yeah, anyway, so you can see that when we poured this beer, it poured with maybe about a finger and a half of quite a frothy but almost kind of more soapy, I would say, slightly cream coloured head there. But you can see sitting on the top of the glass there, you've got some really nice kind of medium sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid, but then as you go further up the head it gets a little bit more sort of soapy and things. But yeah, that head is going to fade away fairly quickly to be a just kind of more thin foamy layer, but it looks great, this beer, I have to say that about it. So yeah, colour wise, I would say this one's a very light sort of amber, more golden coloured beer. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the West Coast IPA style. When we're talking about colour of West Coast IPAs as well, for me, when it comes to this style category, your West Coast IPA can lean one of two ways normally. It can be a little bit more oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or it can be a little bit more kind of bready and biscuity, such as the Russian River Pliny the Elder. And there's usually a bit of a spectrum there, of course. But just judging by the colour of this beer, I think this is going to be a more kind of bready and biscuity affair, of course. But yeah, we might well be wrong on that. We'll just need to see. But from experience, I would say this one is going to be a more bready and biscuity looking beer. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. A few little bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass and a wee stream going up this side of the glass for some reason. But you can see this one is pretty clear, in all honesty. Just a little touch of natural haze to it. But in honesty, I don't think we really need to say anything more about the appearance of this one. This is certainly similar to other ones I've seen in this style category before. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this beer, and I'm very, very curious about that too. So we'll sugar it up and we'll stick our nose into it and see what we get. Oh yeah, that smells pretty nice. And this beer, I think this can is maybe about 2 months old or something like that. I bought this one about a month ago and just need to update the notes that I had on Garage Project before doing this one. But you can still smell this is in really, really good condition. It's great. It gives you everything you'd want from the style. You've got the sweetness in there, the big, deep, dank green component, the kind of bready backbone, and just the big, oily, fruity characters in there. There's just something about New Zealand hops that I absolutely love. But yeah, this is a nice smelling beer. But I will say, straight away from the aroma, you can tell this one is going to be a more sort of bready leaning West Coast IPA, that's for sure. Yeah, that's great. So, gives you everything you'd want from the style. I keep saying West Coast IPA in this review, of course. You know, some people argue that the New Zealand IPA is a kind of separate style, but I would say even when you go to New Zealand, you get IPAs that are brewed like the West Coast IPAs from America, and you get the hazy IPAs that are like the New Englands as well. So I would say, yeah, you can say a New Zealand hopped West Coast IPA or a New Zealand hopped New England IPA. I don't think there's a specific, New Zealand style, if you like, in that sense. If you are from New Zealand, let me know your own thoughts on that in the comment section below. I'd be quite curious to hear your ideas on that. But yeah, that's kind of how I view it, if you like. But yeah, this one's great. Let's just break that aroma down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer is absolutely that fresh white bready bread crust in there. It's like a kind of hedgehog roll almost. But you certainly get little touches of woodiness in there, which you'll very often get with these beers. There's a little bit of cracker above that as well, like a kind of Jacob's cream cracker. And then, yeah, on top of that, you start to get the nice bready notes out of the beer. So, yeah, fresh kind of hedgehog bread crusty bread roll in this one. A little bit of woodiness in there. Nice Jacob's cream cracker character. And, yeah, the wholemeal brown bready sort of note that comes out of this one is really nice as well. It almost reminds me a little bit of Maris Otter malt from England. You've got that sweet and oily but still slightly grainy wholemeal brown bready character in the malt base here. The Kiwis, I think, do produce a lot of their own malts and things like that. There are quite a few malteries down in New Zealand from what I remember, and malt from different parts of the world, even if it's the same treatment and stuff it gets, it is going to taste different because of different soil and water profiles and stuff like this. For example, European wheat is a bit more bitey, North American wheat is a little bit smoother, and New Zealand wheat and Australian wheat will of course taste different again. But yeah, with this beer, you've got that nice kind of brown bready character in the base. There's certainly a good little bit of a white bready character coming out of this one too. So lovely kind of white bready note in there, and then above that you start to get the kind of brown sugary notes out of the beer. So for me, there's a little bit of a kind of toasty, caramelly note to this one, so you can smell that. You've got some more oily caramel in there as well, but you've also got quite a little bit of biscuity character to this beer as well, like a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of note. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit, you know, sweet oily kind of caramel as well. But yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really, really nice. Yeah, I like that with this one for sure. The malty side of this beer is really nice. At the back of the nose, you start to get some of the yeasty characteristics coming out of the beer, and the yeasty side of this one for me is a little bit more kind of wholemeal brown bready, Jacob's cream crackery, and kind of yeah, it's a little bit more kind of Jacob's cream crackery, and yeah, I would say like, yeah, more like a kind of farmhousey, slightly yeasty kind of bready character that you get out of this one. So yeah, I like how that goes together as well. Yeah, is there any more we need to say about that yeasty note in the back of the nose? I don't think so, to be honest with you. But I will say the malty character in this beer gets sweeter and sweeter the more that you drink of it as well. So that's quite a nice point to make about this beer. But yeah, anyway, onto the hoppy side of things then. So when it comes to IPAs, you do of course have a few different ways you can hop them, 3 different ways to be specific. So you have early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That's going to give you mainly bitterness and give you a kind of deeper, danker green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and a kind of brighter green component as well. But then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, and it gives you a brighter green component as well. So West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3 types of hopping, which is why they have that deeper, danker aroma. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they have that more kind of soft, juicy kind of character to them. So yeah, interesting with this one, because this one actually is quite bright and juicy in some senses, but you do get that kind of deeper, danker character to it as well. So yeah, for me, the green component in this one, there is a little bit of earthiness to it, but not too much. It's mainly leaning toward that kind of oily, floral kind of character, and there's a wee bit of a zesty grassiness in there too. But I will say the fruity side of this beer is kind of what you would expect if you know these hops. I think the Nelson Sauvin kind of dominates this one, because you've got that big white, green, grapey, gooseberry note out of it. It's very, very distinctive, and of course, living in Scotland for many years, of course, Tempest Brewery, they loved the New Zealand hops, and the Nelson Sauvin is quite distinctive for me when it comes in that sense, because of the kind of white, green, grapey, gooseberry sort of note that it has. So yeah, the white, green, grapey, gooseberry notes that you have in this beer are very, very nice, I have to say. Yeah, so lots of white, green, grapey, gooseberry in there. I get a little bit of peach out of this one almost, which Racal can give you a wee bit of passion fruit and mango and stuff like that. So I think there is a wee bit of a more peachy, mango-y sort of note coming out of this one, and it will definitely be the Racal that will give you that. But the apricot-y notes that I'm more familiar with, and this kind of oily, peary thing that Racal can give you too, that's quite obvious in this beer, I would say. But yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together in this one is really, really nice. So yeah, all in all, the aroma of this one, it's pretty much what you would expect of a West Coast IPA of any description, be it double or whatever. But yeah, it comes across really nicely, this one. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we try this one then and see what it's all about. This has been a long time coming. So yeah, this is the Pernicious Weed, an 8% West Coast double IPA from Garage Project Brewery in Wellington down in New Zealand, the New Zealand craft beer capital. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that is nice. Lovely, big, oily West Coast double IPA. The mouthfeel on that is beautiful. It is really nice, and it's giving you that into the aftertaste. It's giving you that big bitter punch that you want from this style. Yeah, this is quite a even though I've not tried this one, this is a kind of nostalgia type beer for me. This is what the West Coast IPA was like and still should be like. You know, there are a number of breweries now that are brewing the West Coast IPAs, but they are just a little bit more I don't think they give them quite as much early edition hopping as they used to, because you get these modern takes on the West Coast IPA that just don't have the bitterness, and they're nice enough beers, but with a West Coast IPA you want that big bitterness out of them, at least in my opinion. But yeah, this is a great beer, and yeah, the bitterness really builds into the aftertaste with this one. If I didn't know better, I would probably say that this one, it has that little bit of spiciness that you always used to get from the likes of Columbus in America, but you know, Nelson Sauvin can give you 16% alpha acid, and yeah, so it's very capable of giving you this type of quality as well. But yeah, massive thumbs up to Garage Project Brewery for this one. I need to go there and try this one on tap at source when it's absolutely just straight off the production line. But yeah, this is a great beer. So let's break this one down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So, for me, we'll start in the middle third of the palate then, as we always do. The backbone of the beer, fresh white bready bread crust in there. That is absolutely the backbone of your beer. As you move further forward, you get a wee bit of that kind of, you get a little bit of that kind of woody sort of note coming out of the beer, I would say. But yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there. There's a little smattering of cracker coming out of this beer too, but then I would say you've got a layer of kind of brown bready character coming out of this one, and it does have a fair wee bit of graininess to it, but I will say I suspect that flavour is being amplified by the big kind of dank, deep green spiciness that this beer has got from the hoppy side of things. So yeah, maybe a wee bit of that is coming from the hoppy side of the beer. That flavour's been pushed a little bit, I guess we could say. But yeah, kind of brown bready character coming out of this one. But then certainly on top of that, you've got the white bready character, which is a little bit denser and a wee bit kind of smoother, I would say, as well. So yeah, a little bit smoother, in all honesty, which I do really like. So yeah, lovely big kind of white bready smoothness in this one, and the way that goes together, it's really nice. I will say that the white bready character develops a little bit more sweetness into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, I do, as I say, I do really like how that goes together in this one. But yeah, on top of that, with the white bready notes, I wonder, I'm starting to think I wonder if there's a wee touch of wheat in this one, or a wee bit of Pilsner malt, in honesty, because there is, like, further, if on top of the bready character at the back of that middle third of the tongue, I think there's a wee bit of like bitiness out of the malty side of things. So yeah, maybe a wee bit of Pilsner malt, maybe a wee bit of like wheat, because it does feel a bit more dense and white bready at the top too. So yeah, be curious about that. For the most part, West Coast IPAs use barley malt in the malt base, but it's not unheard of to use a wee bit of wheat, and even I've heard a wee bit of oat sometimes, but yeah, primarily barley malt. But yeah, on top of that white bready character, then there's a wee touch of like a toasty brown sugary character there. So you can definitely get a wee bit of that. Then in the dead centre of your palate, you've got that big oily circle there, which is the the big oily circle is like, it's got a little bit of like Werther's original butter candy butterscotch around the edge, but the dead centre is like a straight up sweet caramel, and that's the boozy side of the beer, of course, coming out of this one. You've got a wee bit of biscuit sitting above it as well, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, the McVitie's digestive biscuity character in this one kind of lingers a wee bit into the aftertaste too, but I really do like that. Again, it's quite an old school beer, this one. There's nothing in this one that I wouldn't kind of expect from the style, but yeah, it's just a really well done one, proper old school. So yeah, we've covered the middle third of the palate then with this beer. Let's go to the back third of the palate. As I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of bready build up in there. In the base of that, you've got a wee bit of brown bread, a wee bit of white bread, then a more kind of wheaty, like Pilsner malty bitiness sitting on top of that. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you can certainly feel there's a nice little bit of fresh kind of white bready bread crust in there. Then on top of that, you've got a more kind of Jacob's cream crackery type note to it. Then yeah, you've got kind of wholemeal brown bready character in there, which is a little bit lighter and more airy. Then the soft white bready character above that, which is a little bit lighter and more airy. And then yeah, you've got a wee bit more of a kind of wheaty, bitey Pilsner malty thing just kind of creeping over the top of that, which is really nice. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together, I think, is really, really nice in this one. I like that about this beer for sure. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty side. But above everything else on that back third of the palate, you start to get the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at those yeasty flavours then. So yeah, for me, the yeasty side of this beer, at its core, it's got a little bit like an oily brown bready character. Then around the edge of that, it's more like kind of soft and more grainy and white bready. And then the very edge of that, it's a little bit more kind of bread crusty and crackery and things. So yeah, brown bread in the middle, more white bready around the edge, and then yeah, a little bit of a more a wee bit of a more kind of bread crusty Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing. So yeah, all in all, the yeasty character, I think that lingers into the aftertaste too, and you do get a wee bit of graininess and dryness and stuff out of this beer into the aftertaste along with the brown sugar. But definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it condenses down and squashes together a little bit more. But yeah, I like that. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. Back corners of the palate, you do have that nice little bit of earthiness in there, and that lingers a little bit. But yes, you go further forward along the sides of the palate, you get that deep, dank, piney, resiny note there underneath, but you get a more floral aromatic spice sitting on top of it. And as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it does get a bit more oily and floral and things like that. But around the front curve of the tongue, you start to get the grassier notes out of it. So it's a wee bit more grassy and zesty. And then, yeah, it's a wee bit more kind of grassy and zesty, I would say. And yeah, I think the way that that goes together is really nice in this one. But it's quite oily. The green component of this one is quite oily around the front curve of the tongue, I would say. But yeah, let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then. Let's have a little look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get that little bit of bready build up in there. You can feel the brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and then a wee bit of the more kind of Pilsner malty character in there. And then yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, you can feel the kind of, there's a bit of the kind of white bready bread crust in there, the Jacob's cream cracker above that, the wholemeal brown bread notes, the white bread, and then a bit, as I say, I do wonder if there's a bit of Pilsner malt in this. There's just something telling me that there's either a bit of wheat giving it a bit of bitiness or a more Pilsner malty character. But then yeah, above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at that fruity side of things then. Yeah, it's got that classic kind of kiwi hop oiliness to it, which is great. The sort of oily juiciness that you get from kiwi hops is just so distinctive, and I kind of fell in love with that from trying some of the New Zealand breweries, but also from Tempest Brewery in Scotland, because they love New Zealand hops. But yeah, at the back of that oily bubble there is a wee bit of grapefruit, so I can see why they say that on the can. It does have that wee bit more punchy kind of grapefruity character to it. So yeah, Racal is giving you that kind of grapefruity note. But yeah, the base, I will say on the base of the hoppy side of things with this one, that oily white green grapey gooseberry sort of thing is very apparent in this one. But yeah, there's gooseberry further back on it, but as you move further forward you do get a wee bit of passion fruit. Yeah, there's a wee bit of passion fruit in there, a wee bit of a kind of juicier mango, and then there's a kind of softer apricot-y type note to this one as well as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate. Yeah, as you go into the front half of that front third of your tongue too, it is more about the kind of white green grapey gooseberry sort of notes, and I'd maybe go as far as saying there's maybe a little touch of lime just behind the very kind of front tip of your tongue too. But yeah, if you know Nelson Sauvin and Racal, the Nelson Sauvin I think is the slightly more dominant hop in a sense into the aftertaste, but yeah, the Racal is there a little bit more in the beginning. But yeah, as I say, this beer is quite nostalgic for me. I think it's really nicely done. You can feel the quality in this one, and this beer seems to make it quite regularly to the bottle shops in Hong Kong. So yeah, I hadn't tried this one before ever, but one of my favourite places, Craftissimo, they get this regularly. So when I go there for a beer, I think I'll be having this one quite regularly in honesty. But yeah, this is a great West Coast double IPA, and I'm sad that I didn't get to try it before. I've been missing out for all these years without realising. But yeah, this is great stuff, really good. So let's round off this review then with a look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer, top end of mid-bodied, don't know if I'd quite put it into the full body category, yeah, more top end and mid-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. Lovely cleanliness to it, but a more kind of oily mouthfeel, I would say. The IBU in this one, I think it said somewhere that it was on the can that it was like 80 IBUs or something like that. Maybe I saw that on Untappd, but yeah, I remember I was looking up the number of beers that these guys have produced. But yeah, this one definitely has that big, bitter, punchy character that you want from an old school West Coast IPA. The malt base, as we said earlier, has a little bit of dryness underneath, smoothness in the middle, and a wee bit of a kind of oily sweetness on top there. Like I said, you get that lingering bitterness into the aftertaste with this one. You could tell me there was a bit of like Columbus and Chinook in here, and the green, because of the green component, and I would believe you. But yeah, the fruitiness in this one is nice and oily as well, which is very distinctive, characteristic of the New Zealand hops. But yeah, all in all, very, very pleased with this one, that this beer is as good as I had hoped it would be, and I certainly won't hesitate to drink this one again. I'm glad that this is quite accessible here in Hong Kong, and I will take full advantage of that. So yeah, big thumbs up to Garage Project Brewery for this one. I think it's a great beer, and as I say, just a bit disappointed that I didn't get to try this one sooner, but I think it probably wouldn't have been as fresh if I'd tried it in Scotland, or I never saw it in Sweden right enough, but I don't think it would have been as fresh as it is here in Hong Kong as it would have been I think it wouldn't have been as fresh in Scotland as I'm getting it here in Hong Kong. Brain is not working tonight, guys. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. A great beer, and really happy to finally get a review of this one done. So yeah, this is the Pernicious Weed, an 8% West Coast double IPA from Garage Project Brewery in Wellington, New Zealand. Only complaint I can have about this one is that it's not a 440 or a 500 milliliter can. It really should be in a bigger can than this, in honesty, and in this kind of day and age, say you do a 440, because I think most of their beers are 440s actually. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Garage Project Brewery as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. Ciao just now.